So welcome to this Research Smarter session. My name is Bob Green and I work for Clarivate here in the UK. And today we're looking at the new version of EndNote, our reference management application. This is version 20, which is a slight change from people who are used to the application over the last maybe 10 years, where we've been going through with using X numbers, so X6, X7, X8, X9, and now it's just simply 20. So it's not X20, it's just 20. And the purpose of this session is to show you the interface and also try and give you enough information to seamlessly move from whatever version you're on at the moment across onto EndNote 20. And also give you a bit of an insight into things that are coming very shortly down the line for this new version as well. The first part will be a presentation, and then I will go into the actual product live and show you a little bit about the product, so you get a feel for what it looks like, because it has changed quite significantly. So here is a bit of background. This is more for people who are not so familiar with EndNote's features, maybe fairly new to it. Those who've been around a while will know all about this. But basically the fact that we have loads of styles, over 7,000, that can be used to format instantly to a journal's requirements. We have ways of organizing all your references, no matter whether you have a few hundred or even a few thousand references. Lots of different ways of organizing them, for example, smart groups, intelligent groups. We have the ability of sharing libraries, yep, and the fact that synchronizing will link to Mac, PC, and iOS applications too. In addition, something in the background that a lot of people don't know about is called Manuscript Matcher, and that's still in the product and accessible as well. So from that point of view, core functionality, nothing's changed. So what has changed on version EndNote 20? Well, the main change is that first point on the left here, the new designed interface. So based on lots and lots of work with a working group, the working group consisted of lots of users of EndNote and also users of other reference management applications as well. We pulled together thoughts, ideas about what people liked, what they didn't like about the product, where they would like to see it going. And one of the main things that came through was the fact that the interface was always looking a little bit busy, a bit cluttered, maybe a bit of a too big a hurdle for some new users to take on board. So one of the key things with this new version is to try and make the interface a little simpler, a bit easier to comprehend, a bit more intuitive maybe, and therefore help the new user to get into the product. Because once they get into it, it's been proven that they all love EndNote. It's just that they get put off sometimes when they can't get started. We have an improved PDF reading experience. That's a different reader built into the application. The old one was old and it needed to be changed to a new technology, so we changed that. We have one or two changes to workflow in the way, some of the ways you do things have changed. And we've also added a couple of extra options within the deduplicate tool so that you can use other techniques for deduplicating. Now this slide, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'll pick out one or two bits, and we're going to cover a lot of these in the actual live presentation anyway. But I wanted to pull out here a list of all the things that have changed compared to previous versions of EndNote, just to draw your attention to it, so you've got a heads up on it. So yeah, menu things are swapped around. I've got a slide on that in a moment. Icons, buttons, yeah, there's changes there. Part of this making the interface simpler and more intuitive maybe. Double clicking to get a summary and edit panel up, that's new. I'll show you that in the platform. The layout has changed. We used to have a right and a bottom option. Now it's just on the right and it works differently. Simplified that as well. Groups panel, yep, you can resize it, but you can't hide it now. Some people were hiding that. 3 modes of operation. That confused a lot of people. So that's now gone. It's a much simpler online search experience on the interface. There's quick access to the preferences. A lot of people dive into preferences once they get used to the application and want to customize it a bit. There's a quick access to that. Display fields, rating and read and unread are not there as a default, but if you've used them in the past, they'll still be there and you'll be able to call them up as a customization as well. Multiple libraries open up in separate windows. That's one of the main changes in the interface. in that it's different technology. So when you open a new library, it's a new window, just like if you're in Word or Excel, same approach. So it's consistent with those other Windows applications. As I said, duplicate search has got some new fields added. The sync status is now completely into a separate group that you can call up and see on the screen much more obviously. It was a little bit hidden before. The various features have moved around within the menus that I've said. So a couple of highlights here. I'll cover some more on the next slide. One feature that has gone at the moment, it might come back. We'll see what users think, but it's the show and hide references feature that some people use quite a lot and others didn't really know about. But that's not in this new version at the moment. And the help at the moment is still looking at X9, but on the first patch that comes out, it will be fully updated to EndNote 20. That's the plan for that. And last of all, something a little bit different. If you've come across a tool called Copernio, which is one of our tools for getting researchers to the full text, that tool is now renamed and it's called EndNote Click because it's come underneath the EndNote umbrella because it fits so nicely with that tool. As part of the installation of EndNote, there's the option to install the EndNote Click within your browser as well. And that's a default, which you can switch off, but it's a default on as a default. Okay, so quick whiz through those major changes. Now, I said I'd pull out something to the menus. I thought quite a long time about this. How can I show all this shuffling around in the menus? Well, I haven't succeeded to include all of it, but I've covered the main bits, I think, with this particular slide. So these color codes here indicate where in X9 or X8 even, things were in the menu. So things that were in the reference menu originally are in purple. So this one here is now in the new menu, which is a library menu. Okay, there's a new library menu coming. It's got things added to it. This one's come from the references menu into here. Find duplicates is a library function, so it's in the library menu. Green has come from the edit menu. So find and replace was originally in the edit menu. It's now in the new library menu because within the library, you're doing a find and replace. So that makes perfect sense. Things that have moved from the tools menu into the new library menu, they are all the pinky red ones, and there's lots of those, as you can see. And then last of all, the blue one, that's something that's moved from the window menu. It's the connection status. If you do an online search, you can view the data that was sent to you through the connection status. And this was in the window menu originally, which didn't make a lot of sense. It's now in the tools menu. And in the tools menu, the output styles and the import filters and the connection files, those were in the edit menu originally. They're now in the tools menu. They're seen as tools. And I would say that's true because only advanced users tend to go into those anyway. So those are some of the shuffles that have gone on. Now, so EndNote 20 is now out, launched, and active. However, there were one or two features that we'd hoped to bring to this new version. And there were one or two glitches trying to implement it. And we decided we would still launch and save these for the first patch that will come out soon. So there will be a patch coming out soon, and it will include new features and, of course, any bug fixes. We always have patches coming out soon after release because users all over the world use the application in different ways, and they invariably find things that we couldn't find during the QA testing because of the way they worked wasn't thought about. So there's always going to be bug fixes on the first patch. So there will be bug fixes, and there will be these new features: tabs, notes, thumbnails on the PDF navigation, group search box. Okay, now all these I've got slides on. I'll cover those in a second. Word Online and Google Docs will come a bit later down the line. They're still on our roadmap, but they probably won't be in the first patch. They'll be a bit later because there's a lot of work to go into those because they're both online writing tools, which we need to connect to. But the plan is to have the ability to cite while you write in those two writing tools. Word will come first because it's the bulk users, and Google Docs will follow on behind. And there will also be, independent of EndNote, a new version of EndNote Click coming as well, which I can give you a little bit of a snippet of today in the live session. Now, you may be a Mac user, and if you're a Mac user, the key note is this bold note on the left-hand side, is that the Mac version of EndNote 20 has not come out yet. It's the Windows only at the moment. The original plan was we would bring them out at the same time, but it's proving more difficult on the Mac operating system to implement some of the things that we've been doing on this new interface than it was on the Windows one. So it's sort of fallen a bit behind in a sense. So this will be coming out in a few weeks' time, and you'll be informed about that when it comes out. And there'll be some similar sessions for Mac version 20 when it comes out. So those new features that are going to be added in that didn't quite make it to the launch. The first one is going to be fantastic. I had a play with this before the launch, before it was stopped. We had a version with this in. That's when we found that there was a few glitches. And this is really going to change some of the workflows for people, certainly. The fact that you can open up things like groups in separate tabs across the top, a bit like your browser. And people are used to this sort of idea of having tabs. So we're bringing it into EndNote, and you could open things up in tabs. Therefore, you can flick between one tab and another tab without losing what you were doing between the two. And it'll obviously all be synchronized together. So if you delete something from one and it impacts another, it will update and so on. So that's going to be a really great feature when that comes through. Second one, also very good. And I saw an early phase of this as well. A lot of comments have been made about EndNote to do with notes and taking notes and people working and collaborating together. And if we're collaborating together, we want to share our knowledge and understanding of a particular item. So we want to put some notes in it. There is, of course, a notes field. There is a research notes field. But these are just text fields you just blitz text into. This new notes technology is going to be multiple notes that can be attached to each reference. And these multiple notes will appear with date and timestamps and user stamps. So we'll know who did what when, and we will be able to edit and delete those notes. And there'll be a build-up of notes, as you see on this mock-up screen here from one of the early versions that we had in the background. So that, again, will be really useful because we've had a lot of people asking for notes features. You'll see in a moment when we go into the actual live application that this is the new look PDF reader. However, the bit on the left-hand side is not there yet. These are the thumbnail navigations, which will be coming in one of the patches coming soon. Okay, so it's not in yet, but it will be coming, so watch out for that one. I did say that a group search tool will also be coming in. It might not make sense. Group search, what do you mean by group search? We can already search in groups. Yes, we can. This is actually searching for groups, not the contents of groups. So if you are one of those users who is very heavily into EndNote and dealing with large numbers of references, you may have lots and lots of groups. You can have up to 5,000 groups in a library. I haven't known anybody hit the limit yet, but you never know. There's a target for somebody out there to go for it. But if you have got lots of groups, then we're going to bring in this, this search box where you can type in part of the name for the group and it will bring that up. So you haven't got to scroll through them alphabetically and find them. Okay, now before we move on and start to think about the live demo, I want to just throw in these other considerations. So when you're switching from your current version to EndNote 20, I've already had a few questions and these sort of answer some of these questions. Content files, for example, styles, connection files, filters, they're all going to be the same carrying through. So if you've got some of those you've done, it won't upset your work you've done. You'll still be able to use those. Okay. Any custom ones you've got will be in your own custom area. That's where they'll have been saved. EndNote will pick up on that when you install the new version, and it will gather those up and add them to the new standard ones that are being installed. And of course, with the new version, we always put new styles in. So any updated versions of styles will be added as a matter of course. If you're on EndNote X 9.2 or earlier, so it's a lower version of 9 or 8, you will need to convert your library the first time you open it. Okay, now this is because at 9.3, that's the last version of X9 we brought out, 9.3, we brought in a new database engine to the application, which required a different file structure. So basically anybody using 9.3, 9.33 even, they will have already gone through this conversion process. Anybody going from an earlier version up straight to 20 and skipping that step, we'll still need to do that first conversion. It's just a simple pop-up box that says, this is an old version, it needs to be converted. You click yes and it does it. It doesn't touch your original library. It creates a new copy of it in the new database engine structure. Both the old and the new versions can coexist. I've got them on my computer here, but there is a slight snag in that the cite while you write tools can only be linked to either one or the other. So in Word, it'll either say EndNote X9 or EndNote 20. You can't have both in there. And you have to use the tool to put them in again if you want to swap back to the other one again. Okay. And also, when you're importing text files from online sources, and you've got a RIS file that comes in and you just click it to open it, that can only open with one application, either X9 or 20, one or the other again. So you need to switch these things around, but you can keep both applications installed on your machine if you wanted to. The normal recommendation is to uninstall the old one. Okay, if you want to run them in parallel for a while, just be aware of those two factors. Documents that you've done on X9 or previous will be fine. Carries on through into 20, it's not a problem. And the same with shared libraries, you carry on doing that as you are now. And you can even share libraries across versions. So you might convert to EndNote 20, but your colleagues in the shared library may still be on X9. That's fine, because it's going through the online interface. So it's irrelevant to the people at the other end. They can carry on with their version that they're working on. So those considerations that have come through. Last slide, lots of links to information. So our general learning portal, the downloads area to download the styles and the connection files and the filters, technical support, and a link up here to the EndNote 20 in-action videos that my colleague Jim has put together. He's done loads of these for EndNote 20. They're very short snippets. There is no audio on them. They're just showing you quickly how to do each function. So if you want to just have a quick pointer as to how to do something, they're nice short little snippets, and there's a collection there. If you click that, it'll take you to that collection on our videos online. Okay, right, let's zoom across into actually looking at EndNote now. So hopefully you can see this box that I'm sliding around on the screen here. Okay, now if you start EndNote and there's no known library, doesn't know about a library yet, you'll get this popping up. It's basically a starter saying, okay, there's no library open. Do you want to open an existing library? Click here, and then you can browse off to find one. Do you want to create a new library? Click here, and it will create a new library for you and give you the steps to go through that. Okay, so it's a little bit of a starter. You also get this if you were in EndNote working and you went to the File menu and chose Close, as in close the library. It will close the open library, and because there's no library open, EndNote puts this up, saying, well, what do you want to do now? You've still got EndNote open. What would you like to do? So that's what that's there for. For most people, when you open EndNote up, if you're an existing user, it will just open your previous library up because it knows what you're working on last, as it did before. So I'm going to go off and indeed open up my recent library, which is this one. And that should come up on the screen. And this is the new interface. If you haven't seen it yet, this is your first view of it. So, major redesign. We see this very contrasting screen. This used to be a sort of bluey grey, I guess you'd describe it as. It's now a blacky color. And then this is nice, clean white and black font background. Yeah. Major change at the top here. Right up the top here, we used to have a whole series of buttons going across the top of here. Of course, that's part of the decluttering. So we haven't got that series of buttons up there. We've got the menus up here, and you've got a few buttons over here, main functions. Okay. You also have at the top the search interface. Now, this has changed quite a lot in that it's a dual search interface. You have a single line here, which is a simple search. And then you have the ability of going into the advanced search by using this option here. Okay, so if I go into here and I type in the word deep and press enter, it will reduce my list down to the ones that match, and it will highlight in a sort of orangey color where the search parameter was found. Now it does that here, but this one hasn't got it. This works the same way as the old quick search used to. It's somewhere else in the data, probably in the abstract, because that's where the most words are going to be. But to see that, I need to get that right-hand section up that we're used to seeing. Now to get that up, you double click on a reference and the new right-hand panel comes up. Now this has changed. It used to have multiple parts to it, as it were. We used to have the reference panel, which showed you all of the fields. We had a preview panel, which showed you a preview of the reference in a particular style. And we had the PDF viewing panel. So all those things were possible to be shown on this right-hand section. Now, we still got most of that, but not all of it, but it's changed. So first of all, there's a new view. This view here is called the summary view, okay? And it summarizes the reference, shows the most pertinent details for most people. And we did discuss with it lots with people, what should we have in here? What's crucial? Don't want to overload it. What do people want to see? You've got the ability of attaching files, or you'll see the files if they're attached. You've got the fundamental information here and the abstract, of course. And then you've got links back to the Web of Science down here if you wanted to use that tool. So that's a new screen. You can't change the way it looks. It's a standard setting, okay? Now, we still have the reference panel, and it's called Edit, because that's what the reference panel was for. It was enabling you to edit the references. So if you click on Edit, we now see the new version of the reference panel. So you've got your fields all listed down here, and I do like the fact the reference type is a bit more obvious. Go down here and you can see all these information. And if I keep going down to the bottom of the list, everything is there, and we can see our highlighting coming in now. Yep, okay. So that's the new edit look, and you can switch between those two views here. Now at the bottom, we do still have the preview down here, but I've collapsed mine down so I can focus on this, because to be honest, most of the time I'm using the preview to look at the main details and the abstract, which I've got with the new summary, so I don't need to really see it. But it is down here, and you can drag this split up, or you can just make it come up and down. So that goes up, this goes down, yep, and when it's there, you can reposition it by dragging it. And this is where you can choose your style to change this. I like this because I always thought it was a bit crazy. You've got the preview down here in the bottom right corner, and the way it looks is dictated by a drop down in the top left corner up over here on the old versions. It's now here. Pretty obvious it needs to be here because this is what's going to be doing things. So if I had to change it to Vancouver or something, I'm now looking at Vancouver and so on. Another useful change to the interface is this button here. Now, I use this a lot, and people who've been on my training sessions probably also use it, but a lot of people who have not been on a training session would not even know about this. Copy citation. So let me do an example of this to show you why we brought it out into an obvious position. I'm going to collapse this down a second. Let's go to my all references again by clearing my search. And we'll just go off and back here. Okay, so if I go to select maybe a few of these like this, so I select these ones like this, I can then go to copy citation. And what it will do is it will copy those references in the style I've got selected at the moment, which is Vancouver. So this is the copy formatted feature that was in the edit menu, but it was hidden away in the menu. People didn't know about it. So if I do that, and then I switch across briefly into Word, into here, and I do a paste, here is my pasted Vancouver reference list. Just a simple copy and paste. Yeah, and because you can control exactly how this looks here, you can then paste it out in any style you like. You do tab separated for Excel spreadsheets and various things. And bringing that here just makes it much quicker to use. Okay, but just make sure you select stuff over on this left-hand side. So that's the right-hand side of the screen as you see it. There is no layout option to say, I don't want it on the right, I want it at the bottom. So that's a major change. Some people were still using the bottom layout. That's no longer an option. Okay, you don't have that option to do that. Now, if I just show you one that's got a PDF attached, this one here. So by selecting this, you can see that if there's PDF already attached, you'll be seeing it here. I've actually attached a PowerPoint here as well, just to show you can do that. So multiple ones will be listed, and you still have the ability of adding more. Of course, I think it's 44 is the limit as before in any one reference. So changes to the layout. I'm going to go back to this screen. It is nice you can quickly get rid of that and see the full list. Now, while we're talking about the full list, which we are doing here, people like to customize this list and show different things. If you've already customized it previously, EndNote 20 will pick up what you've got on your system at the moment and display the same columns again. I found that when I did the install, it picked up on my columns. I've tried to set it back to the default so you can see what the default setting is. It is, as you see here, these fields are the ones you see. Now, two that are missing from the default from X9 and previous are the read and unread and the rating. So somewhere over here, usually, if you've got your setting to default, you'd have had the rating column with your 5-star rating. Yep, so that's not here now. And over on the far left, you'd had a series of black dots going down the page, like bullet points going down the page, and they were clickable items to say read, unread, a bit like your email. So those two are not standard. If you had them set previously, they'll come up as before. If you want them to come up and you haven't got them here, you can change them quite easily as before. But there's one subtle change here. We made it even easier to go into the settings, the preferences. Normally, people would need to go into the edit menu and choose preferences from the bottom of the list here. What you can do now is work your way along these headings like this to the end, and you'll see that there's a black cogwheel appears, and that takes you straight into the preferences. Okay. Now, display fields are here, and you can call up anything at all to add to the ones that you've got, just like you used to be able to do. Okay. You can also right-click. So if I wanted to right-click here and add in my read and unread, if I can spot it here, read, unread. Why can't I see that? It must be further down the list. I can't see it in my list for some reason. Okay, we'll just add something else in. We will add in the, oh, there's rating. We'll put rating in there. Okay, that's one of the missing ones there, rather than delay. So you can go in and work on that as previous. It works the same way. So customizing the screen, very straightforward, as you've seen from that. I think I just saw somebody say it's at the top. Thank you. That horse is gone. Okay. So buttons. As I said, most of the buttons have gone. We have got a handful of buttons over here, and this may well change over time. This is our first stab based on that working group saying, okay, what should we have as buttons? We have an add new reference button. So if you need to add a new reference, you click this, and it brings up the form to fill in. Yeah, which you're used to seeing from before if you used EndNote before. I'm going to close that down. You can go to this one here to share a group. You can go to here to export references. This will find full text, and this one will do a citation report in Web of Science. Okay, so those are the quick buttons we've got at the moment. Of course, other things will all be in the menus. So if you're missing a button, go look in the menu. For example, you might be using sync. Well, you've got two options for sync now. You've got in the tools menu, in the library menu, you've got sync, but also you've got sync status over here. Okay, which I'll run in just a second. And if you wanted to share your library, that's still in the file menu where it was before. Okay, but there used to be a button for that, obviously. Yep. So you'll have to look for things in the menus where your button is missing, but they'll all be there somewhere. And of course, you've got your right-click menu as well with the pertinent things for where you are on the screen at the time. Now, to do with the layout, you can customize the layout. As I've already talked about, you can drag things around all over the place. The one thing I wanted to emphasize is that some people have chosen to drag their groups all the way back to the left-hand side, such that they lose it. Get a lot of support calls about that. So we disabled that. Now you can only shrink your groups down to a certain width. You can't take them any further. So don't keep dragging forever thinking, why isn't it going? There is a limit. When it reaches the limit, it stops if you've done that before. Okay. Now, to show the search off, and also to show off the online search, I'm going to go now and do an online search because that process has changed slightly. As you saw in the slides, one of the points I pulled out was the fact that the 3 modes have disappeared. We used to have a local library mode. There were 3 buttons sitting up in the top left corner. A local library mode, an online search mode, and an integrated library mode. So those have disappeared completely. There is only 1 mode now, and this is it. Now this means that you can see your library and all the groups in it, and you can see the online search here, unless of course you decide to minimize it, which you can do, but you can pop it back up again anytime. But it's always going to be there on the left-hand side. So it highlights the fact that there is a tool there that people can use, because previously it was somewhat hidden. Now, for those that like to use this tool, if you go to a source, I'm going to use PubMed for this one. I can put in a search now, and this has come up with the advanced search. You notice the single line search has changed to the familiar multi-line search. And this is the one you'd get if you clicked on the advanced search button on the right-hand side, if you were searching your library. So I'm going to go in here and do Flying Foxes 2020, and we'll do a search. Now, with the new one, it does at least show you there's some progress going on here. It then tells you how many results you get back, and you'll see that that we've got only 8 results here. Now, to expand on the way it works, because this one is a very tight search, I should have done a bit of a looser one. That would have been a better example, to be honest, but it's done now, so never mind. What you get with the new search is you get your results coming up immediately down here, okay, but only some of them. What it will do is it will put 25 as the first number, then 50, then 75, that you get the idea. It's like batches of 25, yeah? And those will be numbers on the screen, 25, 50, 75, yeah? And there will also be the top number. So say there was 540 results, the last number in the list will be 540. And these are all clickable links. So you can see the first 25, the next 25, the next 25, all the whole lot by clicking on the last digit. Now I've only got the 8, so mine's just showing the 8, but that's what it will show. So it's showing you batches in effect. Now, the other thing is that depending on which mode you used to use, whether you use the online search mode or whether you use the integrated mode, there were 2 different ways of these results moving on from this point. One mode would send them straight into your all references, and these 8 would have been added to our existing references to bump that number up by 8. Okay, so it would go on to 53. The other method would not have put them in, and you'd have to click a button to copy them in. Now, this tends to follow the second of those options. Your results are shown on the screen here. We have to select the ones that we want. And in my case, I'm just going to select the lot. And then we add them in with this button on the right. Add them to your library. So when I click this, the extra 8 will go in to our library, as you see here, and it's now gone up to 53. Okay, so that's the way that the new online search works. Simpler, without doubt. And I think that hopefully will be a good compromise for whichever route you've done it previously. It's a straightforward workflow. Now, one of the things that I mentioned that had changed was the duplicate checking tool. I said we've added in a couple of extra features to that. So let me just quickly go and show that. I'm in the All References, and I'm going to go to the Library menu to find duplicates, which is here. It used to be in the References menu. It's now in the Library menu, because in the library you're finding duplicates. And if I click Find Duplicates, it does indeed come up with the familiar pop-up box, albeit with the new look. And behind it is the duplicate references as before. Okay. So this works in very much the same way. I'm just going to cheat and go through and just keep the one on the left as I usually do. Not bother checking these on this occasion. Now what's changed? Well, it's in the options. So if I go back to my preferences and I go to duplicates, the 2 new additions are in here. I'm just hovering over the section that they're in, and those who are familiar with this screen will recognize perhaps which bits have been added. They are these 2 just here. Okay, so now when you're checking for duplicates, you could use the DOI number as a way of checking them. You could use the PubMed Central ID number as a way of checking them. Okay, so these are 2 new additional options that you can switch on or off. Okay, nothing been taken away, they've just been added in. So that's the addition to the duplicate checker. Okay, hopefully you'll find that's useful. Okay, now just a quick look at the PDF viewer. So if I go into a reference that actually has a PDF, this one here does, and we go into view the PDF. Now to view the PDF, you're going to have to bring up the right-hand panel and then click on the opening of a PDF like so. And you get into the PDF viewer, which is a separate window. Yeah, this is where the separate windows pop up. So there's a floating window which you can have up here, and you can move it to the side if you want to look at your metadata on the screen behind, if you so wished. You can make it bigger or smaller, or have two side by side, I guess, as well. You can go through and use the same tools as before. We have this time a drop-down toolbar for the annotations. They're not all scattered across the top. It's like the Mac version. The Mac version has always had a click to see the annotation tools. So here are the tools: familiar, highlighting tool, sticky note tool as before, and the other one strikes through underscore, etc. Okay. Same search tool, navigation tools, and rotations. And you'll get your navigation thumbnails coming in on the patch. So that's the viewing of the PDFs. Now, if I wanted to add a reference into a Word document, one of the things you need to be aware of is that the tools in Word, if I go across to Word just quickly in here, I'm not going to do any adding in because basically they're the same. The tools will be EndNote 20 tools, as you see here. Okay, the ribbon is the same as it was before. That hasn't changed. Yep. The only thing that has changed, just a second, get rid of that. The only thing that has changed is that the quick link from EndNote to come into Word and insert the citation is no longer there, because that was one of the many buttons across the top, that double quote symbol. I know a lot of people use that. They click on it to insert the selected reference into Word. That's not actually there as an option now. So you could go into the tools menu, and you've got your cite while you write tools here, and you've got insert selected citation here, which does the same thing. Now, if you don't navigate into the menu, there is a shortcut. And I know quite a few users that actually just use the shortcut anyway. They never even click on a button. So Alt and the number 2 will do that function. It will add that reference or references, those references in. So as far as cite while you write goes, it's the same. Tools are the same, nothing's changed. And that's why if you've worked on documents already on a previous version, it will just continue to work when you put EndNote 20 in and carry on as it was before. Okay. Now, I talked in the presentation earlier about EndNote Click, which is previously Copernio. Now, that's also in the tools menu. So if you didn't get installed with EndNote, you didn't want it to or whatever, and you change your mind later, there's an option to install that browser extension in here if you wanted to do that at a later date. And talking about that extension, I did promise that I would show you an example of that as well. So let me just quickly whiz across into here and into here. So here is Google Scholar, and we've got various results on Google Scholar. And if there were some of these that you ideally wanted in EndNote and wanted the PDFs as well, this little purple circle up here is the EndNote Click icon. And if I click on it, it'll bring a pop-up box like this. And this is what EndNote Click is going to look like shortly. It's going to have this extended box underneath. The current version that people can get access to, it just has the top section there, but we're going to have this drop down which shows you the results on the page and tells you whether you can get to any of these. This one you can get to the PDF, as you see. This one will have to go through an institutional subscription to get to, and if you had a subscription, EndNote Click would have found that as well, because it utilizes your subscriptions as well as free available text, and so on and so forth. And then things like these ones down here, these are invariably going to be books, because of course Scholar finds all sorts of things, and books won't have DOI numbers and won't be found. But we're working on that as well. Watch for that in the future. The tools at the top were the ability of things like exporting to EndNote, for example, okay, where you can export them directly through. So that's a quick snippet of EndNote Click as well. So just looking at my notes, I think I've gone through the fundamental things I wanted to cover, except for sync. So let's just have a quick look at sync. How do you sync the library? We've got a few extra items in here. Well, up here we've got sync status. And what I like about this is the fact it's got my identity, my sign-in identity with EndNote Online here. And this is good for me because I change my identity a lot. I've got different libraries synchronized to different cloud accounts. So I switch this from one to another, and it's really useful to know which one I'm in so I don't go and accidentally merge them together. So that's a good way of knowing who I am today. I'm in training, and it's a training library, so that's good. It's good to go. So I'll go to the sync status. It will let me know what the current situation is. And there we are. I've got 53 and 45. There is a differential. And if I click on sync now, it will take me off into the sync process and show me the progress going across the top, which is way more obvious than in the bottom corner by the clock, which it used to be. So that's a good step. And it's telling me now it's 53 and 53. It's all gone through. That's great. Done. Now, while we're here, an important point for those of you who are sharing your libraries is that one of the tools for sharing your library is the activity feed. The activity feed shows you who is doing what in your shared library. Well, that's just here. Okay, so you can get to that from this drop down here. And when you drop it down, you see your activity feed. And this is where you can catch up with what everybody's doing in your library and click to see it. Okay, so I'm just going to click on this one. Trainer has added 8 new references. And there are the 8 references that we just added. It's highlighting that to maybe somebody else in the team that's sharing the same library at the moment. They can see what I've just done. So that pretty much concludes the session. I have seen the chat popping up, but I couldn't stop and address it in the middle of the presentation. So excuse me for ignoring you. Apologies for that, but that's the only way that I can deal with this, I'm afraid, especially with lots of pop-ups coming on. So I'm now going to have a look at the chat and see what task is ahead of me. A lot of people asking about they can't hear. I guess that's because they're not into the audio, signed into the audio, but they will get the recording. Yes, there will be a copy of the presentation afterwards. Yes, definitely. Is it possible to open ENLX files created in EndNote 20 in older versions? Oh, I've never tried that, to be honest. I would say no. That's Simona. But I'd give it a try. Test it out yourself. I haven't tried it. After this session, I will test it. And probably put an answer in the email follow-up. But you can always give that a try in a dummy library. Just give it a try. But I haven't tried it. My guess it probably won't because it's a new structure. But I could be wrong. Question from Frank. I built up quite a library using system of groups. Okay, the reason for this is to avoid multiple PDFs of the same paper in the database. Will this change with the new version? Okay, well, your groups won't change at all. I mean, this library here is one I've been using for ages. These have been kicking around for a while. It just transfers straight across. Okay, groups won't change. All 3 types of groups will carry across as they are. That shouldn't make any difference at all. Copy citation is plain text. This is Chloe. No embedded codes, question mark. You are quite right, Chloe. It is plain text. That's one of the beauties of it. You can just quickly throw a reference list in that's not linked to anything, stick it in a slide, in an email, whatever. Obviously, if you want linked, you do the citing while you're writing. Use the proper tools if you want that. This gives you a great alternative. Quick and easy. Jill, would be good to be able to see your notes with this view reference. The notes will come. Yeah, they're not there yet, but they will come with a patch, like I said. If that's what you mean, Jill, I'm not sure. Okay. Margot, red unread was the first option. Yes, thanks, Margot. I knew somebody had spotted that. I didn't. It's like in Sainsbury's, I can never find anything on the shelves. I do go every week. Right, Gillian, can I customize search fields in the advanced search in X9, I have set 3 fields that I normally search. Yes, you can save your default in exactly the same way. Let me just move the chat over and down a bit. Okay, so I go to the advanced search here, look. You can switch to the simple search with this. So it's a toggle, simple, advanced, and you've got your search options in here. Okay, oh, it's typical, it's behind the chat. Let's move it down a bit. Let's go to here, set the default. So you build up the search you want with the fields you want here. It might be six special fields or something, whatever, and set that as your default. And then that will come up as the default whenever you clear down to the default. And you can save and load searches as previous and convert to smart grips as previous. Nothing's changed there. It's just the look of the interface has changed really on that one. Okay. So it's moving down the list again. Chloe, layout theme, color is black, white, green. Could we change the layout of the color? Not at this stage. It might be a future development, but it's not on the roadmap at the moment that I'm aware of to change colors. We're going with this for now. We used to have fixed colors, but previously it's just different fixed colors. That's what we're with at the moment. Okay, sorry about that, Chloe. Frank, are the search results from the metadata, or will it include text in attachments? Okay, good question there, Frank. It hasn't changed from previous. Depends on where you're searching. If you're searching in the quick search will search all fields and the attachment text as well. So PDF text, that's a quick search. If you're searching in the advanced search, you tell it where to search, and then it's very specific. Yeah, nothing's changed on that one. Jill, can you select search reference? Hold on. Can you selected search refs and add to a group first that is then automatically added to all references? When I do specific searches, I usually want them in a group that I know what the search terms I used. Okay, again, nothing's changed there. So smart groups work the same. And you can add references to groups by right-clicking. So nothing's changed there on that one, Jill. So you should be able to do what you're doing now. I can't see that there'll be a problem with that. Meryl has the option to indicate the name of the PDF changed. No, it hasn't. Let me just come back down again, move this down the screen a bit. Let's go to one of these. We need one with a PDF, don't we, to show this? Let's go to a PDF. This one here. Okay, so up here, this one's just Ali. That's unfortunate. Okay. Blakely 2018. Okay, so this is showing the author and the year. Yep, author and year. That's what I'm set to, but you can change it in the preferences to any fields. The PDF handling tools are still there in the background. Nothing's changed on that one. Okay. Right, move down. Angelique, okay, send the presentation. Yeah, it'll go to your registered email that you registered with. Yeah, okay. Jackie, looks very clean and approachable for the user. Thank you, Jackie, because that's one of the aims, is to make it more approachable and more inviting for new users rather than just put them off as soon as they look at it, which some people thought previous versions did. Matthias, could you show the citation analysis relationship to Web of Science? I could do possibly, yes. Let's try doing that. Again, move the chat down out of the way. I'm not signed into Web of Science at the moment, so it will probably grumble at me. Let's go to the Web of Science records and select these ones. So I've selected these items and click this. It will try and launch Web of Science, which I won't be signed into, so bear with me. Oh, didn't like that. Why not? I was thinking about it this time. It's more promising. Just bear with me while I try and answer this question. Okay, so here's the citation report coming up for those records, 43 items, and it will come up. I'm not going to wait for it to come up, but you can see how that's coming up. Okay. Okay, so Chris, my sync doesn't work. It appears that when installing EndNote 20, it moved my library to a different drive location. I moved it to the original location, but sync still doesn't work, even though location. I'm not sure why that would be the case, because wherever you saved your library, when you click on sync, it will sync the existing library on the screen. Make sure there's only one library open. The library's open, you click sync, it should sync to it. So if you are having troubles, Chris, then get onto our support team so they can investigate that specific instance. Certainly I've done it with 2 or 3 libraries since I've done EndNote 20, and I haven't had an issue. It doesn't mean to say there isn't one. I do believe you, but I would go to support and see if they can track down what's going on there. Okay, Chris. So moving down the screen a bit more. Okay, during, is it possible to open multiple PDFs in separate windows? Okay, let's just try that then, shall we? Because I haven't done that one either. If I go into here, we need to first of all find one with a PDF like this one here. So I'll open this one, and then let's move that off to the side a bit, like that. Actually, that's not a wise choice. Let's first of all choose that one, and then I'll do another one like this. Okay, so I've got this one up, and if I do Alt-Tab, we can see that the Blakely one's up there and the other one's up there. Yes, so this one is one here, this one's the other one here, and I could then fiddle around and get them side by side if I wanted to. So yes, they are separate windows, so you can do that. By the way, the same thing goes for libraries. If you've got multiple libraries open, the library will open up as a separate entity, and you could put them side by side, split screen and things to Windows. So it's all using that new that Windows technology we're used to using with other applications. We haven't had up until now with EndNote, so it's improved it definitely. Has emailing an EndNote library changed? No, so compressed libraries are just the same as it was before. Will PMID be added to the duplicate? I had this question on another session I did, Jan, and that would make sense to me, and I fed it back. So I'll try and remember to feed that back a second time, because it's more global in a sense than the central one, but that's the one that was chosen. Again, it was partly in discussion with this working group as to what would be useful. Chloe, if I install EndNote Click, I still need to set up the find full text preference ? Okay, yeah, find full text is a completely separate tool to EndNote Click. They're two separate beasts completely. Okay, one works, find full text works from within EndNote. So you've got your references in EndNote already, and you want to attach the PDF to them. Whereas EndNote Click, basically you're looking at the PDF and you say, oh, that'd be good to have in my library, and it will download the reference and the PDF linked up together. Okay, so it joins the two up in one go rather than have to get them as two separate entities. Okay, so that's that one. Meryl, could we in the future also see the question of other participants in the chat? Okay, it's just a standard way we do it. Some people don't want their questions seen, so we just do it this way. Looking down for the last few questions, hopefully we're getting near the end. So Jill, we have a problem using EndNote over a network with a business group license. Has this improved? Well, I don't think anything's changed with the background mechanisms, to be honest with you, Jill. So my guess would be that whatever issues you're seeing at the moment, and obviously I don't know what they are, I can't see that the changes we've made to EndNote are going to make a lot of difference, because it's mainly interface changes, unless you're using an older version of EndNote before 9.3. If you're using before 9.3, then yes, we changed the database engine. So the technology has changed. But 9.3 and 20, they both use the same new engine. So that's the only change. Okay. It's interface between those two versions. Matthias, nice new interface, black background at the left and at the top. He likes that. Okay, thank you for the feedback. Okay, what about capture reference? Nothing's changed there, Lee. The capture reference tool is still available in the online version of EndNote. but not in the desktop. You go to the online version, download it into your browser, and you could use that as before, and it will link in. Although there's still an issue, just in case you didn't know, with the latest version of Chrome on that. Firefox is working fine on my machine, but Chrome, it goes into a signing in loop, and we're trying to sort out exactly what Chrome have done to break that, because it worked before they updated Chrome. We're trying to get that sorted. Okay, thank you for the feedback, everybody that's put feedback in. And Joss, is there still a highlight function in the PDF reader? Yes, Joss, there is, and a sticky note as well. Yes. And last one, I think, unless anything else comes in, Shirley, sorry that the citing to Word button has gone. It's okay to use Alt-2, but not as intuitive. I agree entirely. And that has been fed back several times, Shirley. I did so in the beta testing, and others, since they've seen the interface, have also thought that too. So yeah, these sort of feedback might well bring that feature back with a bit of luck. We'll see. I've got my own personal opinion as well, of course. So I think at that point, I'm going to have to thank everybody for their attention for this rather long session. We were overrun by 15 minutes nearly because of all these great questions. And with the new version, you're going to get great questions. Just a reminder that when you leave the session, you'll be taken to a feedback form. Please spare another minute or so, especially as this was a new session, and give a bit of feedback, what you think. You can even feedback about the product if you want, and I will wrap all that up and send it back to the product team. So for me, Bob Green, thank you for your attendance today, and take care out there. Bye for now.